Hello and welcome to Advertisers Watching Ads. This is a weekly show where brands watch other brands' ads and discuss what's good and bad about them. My name's Tom Mollison. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, and we're very excited to be brought to you again by Contagious.com. So please go check those guys out after the show who helped us find this week's ad. But before we get to this week's creative, let's meet this week's guests.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carmen Bryant. I am formerly the head of U.S. marketing at Indeed and am currently a free agent. So really excited to be here today.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tori Carter. I'm the senior manager of brand marketing and creative for KFC Global.
What a panel. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. So buying a refurbished iPhone cuts carbon emissions by 91% versus buying a new one. It's also meant to save 68,800 litres of water. And the agency that produced this work were very vocal about the connection between this ad and the recent IPCC report on highlighting the climate crisis. So this ad ran on the 22nd of April to mark Earth Day to raise awareness of the availability of refurbished iPhones. It was created by Marcel for Back Market, who are a huge reseller of refurbished iPhones in France and Germany. The point wasn't so much PR for the brand as it was about sustainability and stopping people from buying new Apple phones in store. And this idea is amazing. So let's have a look at it.
There's an airdrop request from Back Market. Oh. It's time to go refurbished with a cheaper and greener model. You can sign me up.
Back Market vient de faire un petit hacking chez Apple dans le plus grand des calmes, chez la concu.
Ich wollte mir ein iPhone kaufen.
Changed my mind.
En tout cas, nous, ça nous a fait sortir.
Okay, Back Market, ihr habt euch getraut, den Apple Store zu hacken?
Vous avez plié le game.
Back Market, well done.
What we're going to do is give this execution a vote out of 5. 1, 2, 3.
I'm like too indecisive.
So well, let's call that.
You know what? I'm going to give him a 3 because I like the idea. We can give it a 2.5. Yeah, I love the idea.
So, Carmen, what was your take on that when you first saw it?
I actually quite liked it. I thought they did a really good job of taking advantage of a cultural moment, Earth Day, doing something really bold by sort of connecting to the behemoth that is Apple and making people sit up and pay attention. And also really making it, easy for consumers to do the right thing when they're in that mindset of purchasing a new iPhone. So this is pretty clever and interesting.
Yeah, I would say, listen, I love how disruptive it is. Being both yourself as a brand and then also finding a way to break through and actually get noticed are really powerful kind of levers you can pull in terms of getting attention and actually getting your message out there. So I love the approach. Super clever. Definitely really fun and definitely, I think, gets people's attention, which is important.
Do you think this actually works?
Carmen, I don't know about you, but I also was dying just to see the conversion results of this. Like, did it actually drive a bunch of new traffic to their site? Did they actually sell a bunch of refurbished phones after this? Because I think while super clever and disruptive, I think there were some additional opportunities they could have had with their messaging or making sure that it was actually driving traffic and converting the sale. Because I think that was the goal. That was my big question as well. Like, which I couldn't find on the video and I tried to dig online, but did it actually work? Did it drive traffic to them? Carmen, I don't know what you thought. Yeah.
I mean, we start off pretty strong with Apple at the beginning and it's very prominent. So I did find myself in the first half of the ad, intrigued, but, I felt like the branding of Back Market was not as prominent as it could have been. I was wondering a bit, like, did people actually, if you weren't sort of really familiar with the brand already, which I'm guessing the point of this was that they're really trying to be more disruptive and get folks' attention, if you would have walked away with a really clear sort of like brand call to action.
Yeah, it's such a good point, Carmen. And the same thing came to my mind too, because right, if you're not doing something like this to drive sales transactions, you're doing something like this to build your brand. And to be honest, I completely agree. As someone not familiar with the brand, I don't know how much this actually like brought their brand through or built their brand necessarily. And it's a really interesting point that even in the recap video, it actually highlights another brand almost more predominantly than it highlights their own.
So imagine this idea has been presented to you. What would your feedback to the team be to make this better?
I think first is, let's really understand what we're trying to do here. Are we really trying to sort of brand build? Are we trying to drive conversions? Like, what is our ultimate end goal? I think there's a conversation to be had around sort of the messaging and branding based on that criteria. Let's assume that this is for brand building's sake. Like, how do we make sure that back market is more prominent earlier on, that we have sort of at least equal exposure as the Apple brand does? Let's more prominently interject the why into the conversation. Finally, it would be, as we think about what we're trying to do, what are the channels that this really need to be sort of execute, like you sort of delivered? If it's brand building, then perhaps this is the right sort of channel. But as we think about if it's more about conversions, is there a more efficient way to have this delivered to the audiences that we care about?
So Tori, what can the industry learn from this campaign?
I think being super clear about your objectives is really important, because I think it's so easy to get swept away with a big creative idea. And I think there's always the watch out of making sure you're not talking to yourself. So like, I think you could get a really, really clever idea from an agency and be like, oh my gosh, this is so us. This is so great. But if it's not actually driving a KPI or looking after what your brand objectives are that you've set out for the year, like, is it actually serving you? Even if it is a brilliant idea, because I actually think this is a brilliant idea. It's really, really fun. I think it just falls short in terms of them actually achieving potentially what they wanted to. And I bet there's no doubt they talked about a lot of these things that we're talking about today. So I think, they probably identified these things in the reviews, but then didn't quite make that leap to actually address them. So again, I think to reiterate, I think it's really around the messaging or the brand building piece of it not quite being dialed up strong enough to where it's clear what they were trying to get across or what they were trying to convey. What story were they trying to tell? It's a little confusing. Is it like, hey, get a discount with a refurbished phone, or hey, save the planet? I'm not really sure. And then if it was about conversions, we don't have the results, but if the PR fell so flat, it's probably likely that it didn't drive that much of a lift in sales of them. But maybe it did, and maybe we're wrong. And maybe they're watching and they're like, guys, you're wrong. We're now the biggest company in the world. Who knows?
I think that I used to be an innovation director, and this was the kind of idea that you were trying to land every day. Smart use of technology, doesn't cost very much, and can potentially drive traffic and drive PR. So hats off to those guys from my perspective.
I love the idea. I wish for their own sake, there'd been some clarity in a couple spaces on what it was trying to deliver.
Yeah, they definitely got points for the idea and, just being bold and disruptive. I also really liked, as someone who, and Tori, I'm sure, as someone who works on global sort of campaigns, I also just kind of appreciated how they made it really seamless as to how they could sort of adapt this for different markets. Because certainly at Indeed, we would always be kind of challenged with like, how do we sort of make sure that we are sort of bringing this to the various markets in a way that makes the most sense. So that was sort of like one small kind of execution element that I also thought was pretty compelling. As everything we've already said, there are definitely some missed opportunities here.
Well, Carmen, Tori, thank you so much. We'll see you all next week.